Folks, good evening. Just for you to be able to see me, it's your one and only Waka Waka Doctor here, and I'm happy to be moderating this webinar. It's going to be a very quick one, and everyone knows that I am a medical doctor and, of course, a travel and migration content creator. The name Waka Waka Doctor comes from the fact that I have seen 78 countries now, and I've lived and worked in at least five of these countries. I share information with regards to moving abroad on all my social media platforms, and it's not because I'm an immigration consultant, no, but I'm sure you would agree with me that someone who has seen 78 different countries and has lived and worked in five of these countries should have some form of experience, some form of expertise to be able to share this information. So I share information based on my experience only, and it's helped thousands and thousands of people to move abroad to different countries. Today, we're talking about how to finance your move abroad, because again, this is one of the major stumbling blocks for a lot of people who are seeking to move abroad. They can move abroad because there is no money. Hosted and is hosted by Pay4Me app. Okay, the app is called Pay4Me. I'm sure you're going to hear a little bit about it as we go on. And the co-founder of Pay4Me is Mr. Paul, who is right. He's going to do his introduction shortly. I've also got a guest speaker who is Munya Chiura. Once before, and he's also helping people move abroad by financing their move abroad. So I'm going to ask him a couple of questions, and he's going to talk to us about the opportunities that exist, and we will be able to also interact. We want to make this a very very conversation based discussion. So we're going to have chats here and there. You'll be able to ask questions as well in the discussion box. All right, I'm going to give the mic to Mr. Paul to just do a brief introduction of himself and talk to us about Pay App for, I'm going to put a timer on, okay? 3 minutes. You've got just 3 minutes. If you can do it in less time, even better. All right, over to you, sir.
Thanks, Waka Waka Doctor. I really appreciate the time, and thanks, Munya, for being here. Hi, everybody. I'm Paul. I'm the CEO and founder of Pay4Me app. Pay4Me helps international students, both current and prospective, with paying for their tuition and school fees abroad. You know, think about your WES, your CVS fee, your tuition deposits, your application fees. And interestingly, we also partner with MPOWER to help you finance your study abroad. So you'll hear all about that from Munya. Pay4Me really started from my own experience, right, that I dealt with as an international student, just having problem with trying to pay my tuition and school fees in the US. And, you know, today we are present in over 20 countries. We provide same-day instant cross-border payment for tuition and school fees. And I'd love to tell you more about it eventually in the future. But, you know, thanks for joining us. And we're looking forward to having an exciting session with Munya and Waka Waka Doctor. So that works, right?
Thank you very much. So, guys, that is Paul, the CEO of Pay4Me app, and you've heard just a brief introduction from him and what Pay4Me does. It's a fantastic app that you would see in the coming months, okay, and you would find out the magic of the app. Munya, is over to you now. Would you be able to introduce yourself in 2 minutes? If I leave you to introduce yourself, you're probably going to spend 15 minutes. But I'm going to put you on a timer. I'm going to put you on a clock. So you have to introduce yourself in 2 minutes.
You know what, Waka Waka Doc, I am not that bad. I can be brief when I'm given the opportunity. So really for me, it's, you know, my name is Munya. I am originally from Zimbabwe, have had an incredible career working in financial services and fintech for the past 20 years and love what I do. And I'm here just to continue that discussion around financing for students who are looking to study in the US. I'm a product of the US educational system, and yes, just really excited to see the opportunity now in terms of being able to discuss a very, very critical topic, which is funding, you know, academic and financial aspirations. So excited about the session.
Thank you very much, Munya. Thank very much. So I'm just going to get right into my set of questions that I have set prepared for you before others can ask you questions as well. Now, it's good to note that you stated to us that you are a product of the United States educational system, but and you are Zimbabwean origin. So how in abroad impacted of career that you've chosen now?
Yeah, sure. While I am Zimbabwean, I always laugh because I spend quite a bit of time in markets like Nigeria and Ghana, and wherever I go, I have my name means something else in the language. So what I always laugh about Nigeria is that my Nigerian name is Muyiwa, so and then Munya actually means something else in Kenyan. But I was looking at some interesting statistics, and I think even Paul would appreciate this, is that 55% of startups in the US that are valued at $1 billion were founded by immigrants. And then another interesting statistic is 64% of billion-dollar companies have a co-founder who is an immigrant. And I think for me, that still resonates in terms of why studying abroad in the US and whether you come back to your home country or not. I think for me, in particular, it opened up possibilities. You come either from a very small country, you might even come from a remote village, and then you get this opportunity to study abroad. And I think for me, this has been why, in terms of my career, had I not had that opportunity, then, I think things would have been very different. And then maybe just give you another statistic in terms of MPOWER. So 95% of our students would not have been able to study abroad without an MPOWER loan. We've funded more than 15,000 students. And interesting enough, a lion's share of those students are from Africa. So that's why, you look at, what we do as a catalyst and in a way for students really to be able to meet their academic and financial aspirations. So for me, that would have not happened had I not had the opportunity to study in the US. And at that time, I'm not going to tell my age, but we didn't have facilities like MPOWER. So it's either you had a scholarship or you came for money, and that was it, right? There was no other medium. And so I think that's, for me, where we feel excited about, the different opportunities that exist for funding for students in 2024.
Some people don't understand the idea behind and maybe why I clamor a lot for people to move abroad. I used to never want to move abroad. I used to be pro stay in your country. Believe it or not, that's the truth. I was Nigeria would be great, stay in Nigeria up until 2013. And my life just turned around and I was like, whoa, So how do you think your life would have been if you had stayed back in Zimbabwe? Remember that one loaf of bread is like 10 million Zimbabwean dollar.
Yeah, so I know we can talk a little bit about Japa too, but look, the reality is that every individual has to make an informed decision of whether they want to stick in their own country, and I respect people who do that. I think not everyone is meant to go abroad, right? I think that's one of those self-reflections. And for me, I had my older brother who had already gone to the US to study medicine. So it was sort of a natural thing for me to then look at it. And I come from a family of two. So we're a very small family. So that was the catalyst for me, was the fact that I had an older brother who had already sort of paved the way forward in terms of being the US. And even when I landed in the US, we had like a real, practical, not coming to America conversation about what America's about. And I think that was for me. So I probably would have done okay, but I think that studying abroad just absolutely opens up your minds. And you talked a little bit about that, Waka Dog, in terms of your experience in multiple countries. I learned so much by being in a market, in fact, in unfamiliar territory is where I feel my mind gets stretched and thinking more broadly. So, my life probably would have been okay, but certainly much more exciting and different because I took that opportunity to study abroad.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that. Now, next question I have here for you is, you moved to the United States. How did you go about the process of funding your study abroad, and what resources or alternative funding sources did you wish you had at your time, during your time?
Yes, so I was very fortunate because, as I mentioned before, there was no Empower 25, 30 years ago. The only way people could study abroad was to either get full scholarships or they had to be self-funded. And so in my case, I was fortunate to be self-funded. And then when I did arrive in the US, and that's another sort of tidbit there in terms of, when people say, oh, I don't have the money, I don't have the funding. But, once you arrive in your final destination, you find some really interesting opportunities, whether they're funding opportunities, whether it's being able to find, jobs on campus and so forth. But yeah, that was the risk I took. And because I also had an older brother who had gone before me, we as a family said, look, we're doing this, we're going to be in this together and make sure that we get through whether it's self-funding, to finish, university. So I was in that category of sort of self-funding and then landing on campus in the US to try and explore where some other funding opportunities might have existed for me.
Thank you. And a lot of Africans, including myself, okay, I used to tell people, take a loan, you have to be careful, And we know that this is true for a lot of Africans, and a lot of people on this call are scared of taking loans. Please, can you mute your microphone if you're just joining in? Mute your microphone, please. A lot of people are still very scared of, taking loans. Can you help demystify this idea that loans are dangerous and you shouldn't take study loans?
Yeah, so for me, I want to think about this as an ROI. So that's return on investment. So let's talk a little bit about Empower. So Empower is a zero collateral, zero cosigner loan. We are essentially investing in our students' future. And part of that future is that we expect those students to be able to have a different lifestyle, whether they decide then they're going to successfully work in the US and Canada. We do focus on STEM and MBA programs. So these are students who are making a minimum of $100,000 a year once they graduate. I mean, there's OPT in the US, which means you're legally allowed to work for 3 years. So the type of students that we are funding, we've actually seen an interesting sort of trend, which is that the loan is a 10-year fixed loan. We're seeing students pay in 5 years. We've even had instances where students are paying back in 2 years. And the reason for that is that, you think about it as upfront investment now, and then 10 years to pay that off. And then for those who've got income streams where they can do that. So that's the first thing I would say, that is, it's got to be looked at as a return on investment and rather than a loan, because you're investing in your future, you're investing in very expensive schools in some instances. But then once you graduate, then you can demand an income stream. And I always like to give examples of a young lady called Adina in Addis Ababa. She's making $5,000 a year as a junior data analyst. She comes through to Empower, gets a Empower loan for $45,000. She's got $15,000 of her own funding. She graduates, she gets OPT, right? She works 3 years and employers come and say, look, we like your skill sets. And that's very critical to think about it from an ROI perspective. And if you look at markets like the US and Canada, and I always talk about the fact that in the US today, there's a shortage of 3.5 million STEM jobs that need to be filled, regardless of all the tech layoffs and so forth. In Canada alone, 95,000 engineers will retire in 2030, right? So this is the reality we are faced. And Africa is at the core of this opportunity in terms of being able to fill these incredible jobs, and whether you do that in Canada or the US or Kenya, right? That's the reality. Then the second thing that's important to realize is that we do all love scholarships. I mean, people will say, listen, I'm going to go get a scholarship, and good for you. If you get a $80,000, $100,000 scholarship to go to Stanford, I congratulate you for that. But the reality is there's simply not enough scholarships globally to meet the demands of the education that one might be looking to pursue. And this is where we've been able to sort of fill that gap. So yeah, that's the way I would demystify it. It's an ROI. It's an investment in your future with the expectation, and fortunately for us, which is why we've been in business 10 years, it is a model that works. It's a model that we've seen work time and time again, especially for our African students.
Hmm. Thank you very much. I'm in Nigeria at the moment on holiday, and I've been speaking to a few people here 3 days now, and just going on the streets and walking. And I've met a few people who have expressed their difficulties and challenges with me. A lot of them would be centered around financial struggle. And so I want to ask you now, from a financial standpoint, what do you think are the most common financial challenges that are faced by Nigerians or Africans abroad? And how does Empower help with these challenges?
Yes, so a little plug in here for Pay4Me is I'm a big fan. Moving abroad is not easy. I mean, you're faced with so many challenges, right? And I'm not even talking about the visa part. This is just simply getting yourself prepared. You think about all the application fees, you look at the deposit fees, you look at service fees. I mean, it all adds up, right? And so I think one of the overall challenges, and we are just a piece of the pie, which is that how do you essentially make sure that you have a holistic view of all the costs that are associated with making this investment. So while we cover the Empower tuition and housing expenses, we're not covering airline tickets. So in fact, recently we just announced a partnership with Waka now to help students who have Empower loans get a discount through Waka now. So we're trying to do what we can to try and lessen the burden for some of our students. We also have provided services around F1 visa preparation and Canadian border pass preparation so students can get ready for these. And these are costs that people might need incur themselves. So I think that it's really looking at all of these financial pieces that make it a challenge for students, especially as they're thinking of moving abroad. Another big one, and I've had the fortune of working in the cross-border space with a company called Flywire and with the Flutterwave, is that making those payments when you're in Nigeria in Naira for US dollar, invoice or tuition payment is not easy. It can be frustrating, and this is where some of the platforms like Pay4Me play a critical role in just being able to make that journey a little easier, especially when you're coming from your home country. And then there's also the whole piece of now you land in the US and Canada, and what do you do next? So what we've done again as Empower is any student who's approved for an Empower loan in the US, they can opt into a US credit card. We can give them up to a credit line of about $5,000. Why? Because it's a cashless society. The last time I was there, I pulled out my bills and they didn't want them, right? Even though it's a US dollar bill. So that's the reality of the US now, is it's a digital ecosystem. And so we also want to be able to help students provide them with the capabilities of, if you need to go to the grocery store and you've got some other way to be able to pay for that. And so, yeah, I think for us, it's looking at that holistic journey, which is starting from your home country, going through the process of applying, and we work with partners like Pay4Me who can help students through that journey with the UTM link, and then going through the application process, and then worrying about the visa, making sure you're ready for the visa, and then again I mentioned the discounts for airline tickets, and then finally getting your visa, hopefully to get on a plane, and then landing in the US and Canada and starting your journey. So yeah,
Thank you very much.
A lot of different pieces there in terms of that financial journey.
You did mention at the start that Empower helps with tuition payments. That's what I caught, that you help with tuition payments. But aside, and I know that tuition is not, tuition is a part of the financial requirements when it comes to traveling. Aside from tuition payments, what other supports? Tuition payments you've talked about this flight tickets. Are there any other supports that Empower provides to international students who might encounter, financial difficulties while studying abroad when they get there? Maybe for instance, they get their tuition fee increases, housing cost rises up, and maybe miscellaneous costs that are not prepared for. Can Empower help with this, or is it just tuition and flight tickets?
Yes, and just to clarify, we don't fund flight tickets. We don't
No
fund
discount. You said
deposits. Yes, yeah. We do have a partnership with Working Out to provide discounted tickets for students, but that is not part of the Empower loan. It's really more the value-added service. But specifically for the loan itself, we only cover tuition, housing expenses, your any other education-related expenses that you will incur. So one of the key things is once you've started your journey in terms of applying for Empower loan, we will ask you for a cost. And that cost should be everything inclusive of your living expenses, your tuition, your books, your meals, your healthcare. We want all of those costs identified when you're applying for the loan, because those would indeed cover those costs. Now, it's also important to mention, and I like what you sort of referred to, which is that once you arrive in the US, one of my most frustrating parts of the US or the Canada is that you as an African have no credit score or history when you land in the US and Canada. So one of the things we have done is that for every on-time payment that you make for your loan, we are actually building your credit score in the US. And that's really important, because we want to make sure that students, as they go through the journey, get to a point where they have the ability to access other financial services. So you might arrive in the US and Canada, your landlord says, welcome from Lagos, but I want 12 months of rent up front, right? And I know Nigeria, some markets, you're used to that, but other markets, that's a stretch. So these are all of the expenses one needs to consider. So for us, it's how do we help students, not just in terms of covering some of their housing expenses and tuition and healthcare costs, but also what can we do to provide the financial independence that one student would need once they've landed, in this case, specifically in the US, where we're capturing your credit score, and that's critical for you to be able to then access other financial services in those countries.
Thank you very much for that. I'm going to come a bit more personal now and ask you, is it possible to get guidance on how international students, prospective international students who are listening to us, can prepare themselves for post-graduation career and job opportunities that exist abroad?
Excellent question. So I also didn't mention that, our view at Empower is that we want to be able to walk with the student throughout that journey. So it's not just about I'm in Abuja now, I'm ready to sort of start that journey, but once I'm in the US. And so we have some resources that are available for any student who's been approved for an Empower loan, where we give them access to, and this is specifically in the US, access to internship programs. So this is a database that will give you all of the US companies that are willing to hire international students and workers. And that's very critical, because when you get into the US, you are allowed to work your 20 hours. And we're finding a lot of students want to be able to take advantage of the internship programs. And in fact, because of the 3-year OPT in the US, we find a lot of our students will get internships while they're still in the university. And then the employer will come and say, look, we really, really like you. Come work for us. And I have a really interesting use case for that. There's a student called Nigel who's studying at George Washington University, was studying a master's in business analytics. During his internship program, the CEO of one of the big tech firms identified him and said, look, once you graduate, you're going to come work for us. And so fortunately, as we speak now, he's going through his OPT. I think this is in first year, so he's going to go another 2 years, and they're going to give him an H-1B visa, right? So why I give those examples is that there are plenty of resources available that we have now, where we want to make sure that students have access to this. Yes, there's the Microsofts and your Google, your big institutions, but there are plenty of other smaller companies in the US that are willing to hire international students. And so we wanted to make sure that we had that resource available. So if you are approved for an Empower loan, that resource is available for you, where you can access, we call it F1 hire services. So you can look up internship programs that are available in the US.
All right, thank you very much, Munya. And guys, you can leave your questions in the comment box. We're going to come to your questions. I just have about two more questions to ask him, and we'll start taking questions from you. So if you're listening and you've got questions in your mind you want to ask, just drop them in the comment section. Don't forget to thank Munya and, of course, Pay for Me app for organizing this, and then you can ask your question. So when you're back in Africa now, and when I heard you're back, I think we talked maybe about a year or two ago, and moving back to Africa with your wealth of experience, did you experience any reverse culture shock? If you did, how did you handle that? Just on a lighter note now.
So I find that interesting because I think all of us do this. I laugh. I've been back in Zim for the past 12 years, and there's always that group of people that want to come back home and change the world, and we welcome them. But I find it interesting when you come back, people are like, so where were you when we were like struggling here in Lagos or Harare? You think you got all the bright ideas just because you got an American education or Canadian education or British, So I think that there is certainly I think people need to be realistic that when you're coming back to your home country, there are people there who've been doing incredible things. I think the synergy comes when you can provide value in addition to what people are doing on the ground. So the reverse culture shock for me was, I think there's certain things that I'm accustomed to in the US, like 24-hour access to, whether it's a Walmart or wherever you want to go, right? There's certain places in Zim that are not open. And I know Lagos, it doesn't matter any time of the day, there are places that are open. But I think that it's just that aspect of the convenience of certain things. Then there's a certain comfort in terms of speed too. I mean, I think when you are in markets like the US and Canada, people are always on the go. And I think when you come to Africa, sometimes it's good to just be able to breathe a little bit and take in the air and take in what's going on around you. And I think that there's a balance there where it also allows for, I think, for me, innovation and great ideas to come in ecosystems where you're not always rushed. And I think that that has been also part of the sort of reverse culture shock is just taking it in and not feeling that you always got to be running 150 miles an hour. There are times where you can slow down a little bit. So I think that's been key for me.
Well, thank you very much. Guys, if you've been listening to us for the last 30 minutes, this is Waka Waka Doctor here. And this webinar is hosted for those who are interested in moving abroad as international students and looking for finance opportunities. We have here Munya, who works with MPOWER Financing and has been talking to us for the last 30 minutes with questions that I've been asking him. And this webinar is organized by Pay4Me app, which the CEO of Pay4Me app, Mr. Is here as well with us. Mr. Paul is here with us, and I'm sure he'll be able to answer a few questions if he doesn't mind. If you've got questions you want to ask us, you want to ask Munya about finance, all you need to do is drop your questions in the comments box. I'm going to read them out to him, and he'll be able to answer you. Or if you feel that you want to have a face-to-face discussion, just raise your hands and just join the conversation and ask your question. It's free for everyone. Okay, just raise your hand so that I know. You just don't just turn on your microphone. Raise your hands and I'll call you to have the conversation. One more question that I've got for you, Munya, is that did you ever participate in internships or work study programs in the US, and how did this position you for job opportunities when you finished?
Yes, so I was very, very fortunate. I actually had two fantastic internships that I had when I was in university. One of them was with the World Bank, so spent some time in Washington. And then the second one was actually with the H.J. Heinz Company, the folks who make ketchup. So that was a lot of fun. I was in Pittsburgh. But both of those opportunities, interesting enough, came through my university. And so that's also maybe some advice I give to students is that if you land on campus, network, even your professors, will have these opportunities. In my case, for the World Bank one, it was my economics professor who did some work with the World Bank, and that gave me an opportunity. And he says, anyone who wants to put their hand up to get internships, do that. I also had one externship, and the basic externship means I didn't get paid for it, but it was about the experience. Still well worth it. But yeah, that's how I got most of my internships, was really through the university ecosystem.
I need to ask you this before we move to my next. How have you impacted international students? How have you changed the life? And this is not about you boasting. I'm not trying to make you boast. I know you're a humble person, but how have you affected the lives of international students generally?
Yeah, so I don't think it's me as an individual as much as it is the work that I do and I'm passionate about. I mean, when you hear stories of international students who've gotten their visas, who are on planes. I was in Kenya this past week and met a gentleman who comes from a community that's about 300,000 people, and they are nomads, so they actually move around. And he was giving me an example of him coming back from school, and his whole family had relocated and had to walk 200 kilometers. I mean, and this is an individual who's running AI software engineering, projects in Kenya, and is about to go to the US. When you hear stories like that, it just absolutely makes you proud of the incredible African students we have who are doing great things. And if you recall, I talked about the 56% of startup founders who are running billion-dollar companies who are immigrants. This is our grit, our passion, and it's Africa's moment. And this is what I think for me continues to excite me about what we do. But when you hear the stories of students who are doing phenomenally well, the downside is that we also have students who make it difficult for us. By circumventing the ecosystem, by doing bad things, and I think that also jeopardizes, and that's what unfortunately leads to some of our really disappointing visa numbers I think we have across Africa, right? Which is that it's one of the factors is that I think that there are some unfortunate situations that make difficult for some of our students to pursue these journeys. But yeah, it's those stories. Hearing those incredible stories of students who are studying, who get to the US, who are starting companies, who are working for Google and Meta, and just incredible, students who are doing great things in the US and Canada.
Fantastic. I'm sure your mouth must be aching right now. We've been talking for 40 minutes. So I'm going to allow Mr. Paul. Mr. Paul, he is the CEO of Pay4Me app, the organizers of this webinar. Do you want to chime in a bit and join the conversation and just talk to us a little bit about what you're doing and how you're trying to help Nigerian prospective students, African students, with respect to getting loans to be able to make their move abroad?
Yeah, thank you, Waka Waka Doctor. I think I have an interesting experience, right, to chime in with this. So in 2014, I almost got kicked out of school, right, in the US. Coming to the US as a new fresh student, I almost got kicked out of school because my tuition payment from Nigeria was delayed, right? So I think what would have been really nice then was to have a company that could, help with paying my tuition while I figure out the whole craziness around the payment delays, right? I understand that MPOWER, focuses on, graduate students for the most part, but it would have been nice to, have a company or an organization that I could have run to and say, hey, you know what? My money is on the way. I can, but I just need to be able to stay in school. So, I got lucky, right? I got lucky and worked with other international students. I was able to pay my fees, while all of that happened in the background. But eventually, I started working as an international student advisor, and I worked with students from over 120 countries, right? And I realized that students from just frontier economies or developing economies, Nigeria, the Nigeria and the Zimbabwe and the Kenya and the Ghana, are the areas where students have issues, with just getting their funds, to their schools on time. So I think an alternative, it's always nice to have an alternative that can help students with, getting their tuition fees paid on time. Some people have the funds, some don't, but the vision is always valid. And, I think just having a company like MPOWER, working closely with them to provide these services and make it a lot more easier for people to apply, it's always a good thing. I think before MPOWER, or before our partnerships with MPOWER, people reach out, and just started working closely with MPOWER has made it a lot easier. We are able to work closely with the customers, right, and say, here are kind of like the step by step you need to do. MPOWER does a good job at at helping and connecting, but I see companies like Pay4Me as kind of like the last mile delivery sort of company. So that's, in a nutshell, how we approach that, and how I think, financing options can help students with their study abroad processes.
Thank you very, very much. Before we go on to questions now, I want you to talk to us again about your app. What are the things that people could do on Pay4Me app, and how does it help people who are looking to move abroad?
Thanks, Waka Waka, for highlighting that. So Pay4Me really is a one-stop platform for international students. At least that's what we're trying to get it to be, right? When you look at the state of especially when, let's take Nigeria or other West African or African countries, for example, right? People have to save up, right? You have to save up if you want to go study abroad, right? You have to save up. You have to, you have to save up, but also you are running a race against exchange rates, right? That's one challenge, right? The other challenge is today, if I needed to pay an application fee to, say, the University of New York, NYU, right? If I'm from Nigeria, I need a dollar card, right? I can't take my Naira card and go pay this application online, right? I need a dollar card. And it's kind of like more of a game, of which card will work, So I need to go set up a bank account with like 4 or 5 different banks or fintechs, and, hope and pray that this card will work, right? In most cases, they don't. The same with when I need to pay my tuition, deposit, or I need to pay my school fees, right? The same with when I need to pay for my CVS fee and credential evaluation. Well, Pay4Me, what we're doing is we're taking out the guess out of this process, right? We're saying you want to pay for your admission fee. You don't need to worry about going to open like 10 million DOM accounts or open accounts with like 10 million fintechs, right? You can come to us and say, I want to pay my application fee to XYZ school, provide us the required information, and in under 24 hours, like, I don't think any company does this across the continent. I think Pay4Me, we're notorious in a good way, right, for completing transactions super fast. So you want to pay your application fee, your visa fee, your tuition deposit, your CVS fee, etc. We make this happen in under 24 hours. And I think as we continue to grow the platform, we would go beyond, providing just payments and, connections to loan services and companies. We would, help. We want to help international students be successful, and I think the overarching goal is we want to work with partners, to make this happen. So yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Paul. Thank you very much. Munya, let's take a couple of questions here. We've got a lot of them. I'm going to ask you the first one. Does MPOWER help? This Emmy, this is from Emmy Brit. It says that, does MPOWER give student loans to admitted bachelor degree students in Canada and Germany?
Yeah, that's a good question. No and no. So we are 100% focused on 2 markets, which is the US and Canada, and we're also 100% focused on master's degree programs. Now, there is a little bit of an exception. I would say that's probably less than 1%, which is that if you are already enrolled in a university in the US and Canada, and you've completed your first 2 years, and you're looking for some funding for your last 2 years, there is a window where we might be able to assist you. So yeah, we can do bachelor's degree programs, but the reality is it's probably less than 1% of the kind of students that we're seeing who are looking for funding. The majority of our students who are looking for funding are at a master's degree level. They're looking to study a STEM designated degree, so science, technology, engineering, and math, or an MBA program, and they are looking to study in the US and Canada.
All right. Please, could you help us mute your microphone, Chinelo or Chino? Please mute your mic so that we don't get this interruptions. Thank you very much. The next question for you, Munya, is someone says that this is from Ogochuku. It says he or she, I hope this, I don't know if it's he or she, it's a unisex name, I think, says that I got an admission to study in Canada. However, I intend to enroll for an online MSc program in data science in Illinois Institute of Technology, and it's saying, can I access MPOWER loan to fund this program?
So we generally don't fund online programs. We're primarily looking at students who are going to physically leave their home country and study in the US and Canada. But one way to do it and check fairly quickly is that, and maybe Pay4Me can provide the UTM link in the chat. A good way to check eligibility is to go on to that UTM link. We'll quickly be able to tell you in 30 seconds, can you move forward or not? And we look at a couple of factors. One is, what is your program you're studying? What's the duration of your program? And is it an MPOWER school? So that's a good way to check if you want to just be able to see if your program is eligible. We do support some exec programs, but online programs, we really are focused more on students who are looking to leave their home country and study abroad.
All right, thank you very much.
And maybe another way to think about it is, do you need a visa? Right. If you need a visa, then we're probably going to be in a situation where that's a critical part of, or milestones in terms of us being able to then ensure you're on a plane and the institution that you're studying at will ultimately get the funds for you to study.
All right. Someone is saying, her name is Amechi Charity. She's saying someone like her, a school isn't on the MPOWER list of schools. So what can she do?
Yes, going back to my previous comment about eligibility, if it's not an MPOWER school, we unfortunately cannot support. And why that's the case is because we've got 400 schools in the US and Canada. We have a very strong relationship with those schools. When you receive the MPOWER loan or get approved for the MPOWER loan, we actually provide those funds to your institution so if you went to Stanford, you got into Stanford, we send the funds to Stanford. And then Stanford will then ensure that those are applied to your university account. And so there's a process there. So we can't disperse funds to a school that's not on an MPOWER list. So very important on the eligibility piece, make sure that it's an MPOWER school.
All right, thank you very much. This is from Adejoy Emmanuel, is saying that for master's or graduate programs that last 9 months, how can I repay the loan for 10 years, just as you said?
Yeah, so let's just talk about some real quick math here so that will make you understand. So I think one of the key things I always say to our students is that you have to understand your cost of attendance. I mean, the US and Canada are incredible markets. In the US alone, there are 4,500 educational institutions, 4,500. So you can think of the range. There's some incredible schools that are on the MPOWER list, by the way, that are not $80,000. In fact, our average loan size is about $40,000. So there are some schools where there are amazing STEM schools that are $25,000. So it's important for the student to do the research and understand the dynamics of what they think they want to be able to invest, as mentioned, it's ROI, right? But if, for argument's sake, if I took a $40,000 loan, that's $500 a month, right? In terms of your in-school, we call payments that you'll make while you're still in school, and then it might jump up to $650 to $700 going forward. But if you're making a salary of $100,000, $200,000, that is absolutely manageable. And not only that, but we have students who get the opportunity to work on campus. They're graduate teaching assistants who make $3,000, $4,000 a month. So it's just important to understand what your specific situation is, and ensure that you look at it from an ROI perspective, which is that I am going to invest this money, and this money will give me a return, and that return will inevitably be less than 10 years. In some cases, you're getting an ROI in 2 or 3 years. So that's the way to think about it.
All right, amazing. Got more questions here. Someone is saying, do you provide loans to students who are already enrolled in postgraduate diploma in Canada and just require loans to complete their tuition fees?
Yes, so it gets very tricky on postgraduate diplomas. I also want to preface that we are primarily looking at degree programs, right, and not postgraduate diploma programs. And so if it's a degree program, enrolled degree program, then we can support you. If you're already in the US and Canada and you might have done your first year and you're looking for funding, absolutely, or you're looking for top-ups, we've got some scenarios where students might want some gap funding for living expenses. We can do all that. But yeah, preface again is that we are primarily looking at programs that are degree enrolled programs and not necessarily postgraduate diplomas.
All right, thank you very much. Someone is asking here. So let me see. Lots of questions coming in. I've gotten admission to study in Canada, and I've even paid tuition deposit. However, I was denied MPOWER because of my credit report. I have had delinquency on my reports in the past due to some situations beyond my control, but I've paid all my debts. Is it possible to reapply again? And does MPOWER reconsider situations like mine?
Yes, so one of my recommendations is, in fact, our general policy is that you can reapply in 90 days. Look, these things happen, right? We have instances sometimes where people have things on their credit report that they weren't aware of, or, it was a mistake. We say, look, try and maybe deal directly with the credit bureaus and clean that up and then reapply in 90 days. So yes, that's an absolute possibility after 90 days.
All right, fantastic. How can people get access to you, or if they've got more questions, because I see we're running out of time, is there a way to, because we might not be able to take all these questions, there are a lot of questions coming in, but is there a way for people to contact you or ask questions? How can we go about that?
Yeah, so this podcast really was put as a way for us to also promote our partners we work with, and so one of my recommendations would be that please contact Pay4Me app directly on any specific questions. There are some UTM links, and that's one way to maybe capture any of those questions. And then I'm more than happy, and I do this on a regular basis, is to have future webinars and podcasts where we can just talk and clarify any specific questions students have. So yeah, that would be ideal in terms of how I can get back to you. I am on LinkedIn, but I would discourage any contact there because I might not get to you for the next couple of months. I just have, I'm got quite a bit of inbox mail there that you might not get the response you're looking for quickly enough. So yes.
And people you can send questions as well to Ernest at pay4me.app. Ernest, okay? ERNEST at Pay4Me, PAY4ME.app. I'll take that again. Ernest, ERNEST at Pay4Me, 4, PAY4ME.app. You can send an email to that. It's already here. Okay, it's already here in the chat. If you're reading, you can send an email to that, and you would get answers. Okay, you will get answers. All right. Do you sponsor 2 years diploma programs in Canada?
I think I answered that question about diploma programs. Postgraduate diploma programs are not ideal.
Diploma programs are not ideal. Okay. More questions coming in. Empire does not support UK programs, unfortunately. Okay. I think because we're getting loads and loads of questions now, I think the best thing to do, guys, would be to send your email to ernest@pay4me.app. Thank you very much, Munya, for this conversation. It's been a very good eye opener, and I'm sure that you've been able to help a lot of people with the discussion and the questions as well. Mr. Paul, do you want to close this meeting? Any final words?
Um, Thank you, Waka Waka Doctor and Muya. Really appreciate you coming. It's nice to, have you here to address all of this current and prospective international students. I just want to say Empower has been an amazing job, and we like working with the team, and I think everybody here who's interested in learning more about how they can secure additional funding, first for their studying abroad programs, you can reach out to us at Pay for Me. We we'll be very more than happy to help you through the process of getting an Empower loan. And if you have questions, you can reach out to us, and if there are questions that we can answer based on our experiences with working with other international students, we can. And in some cases, we can work directly with the Empower team to get your questions answered on a case-by-case basis. And also, one of the key things to get an Empower loan is getting an admission from a school, right? So if you want to pay for your admission applications, for your deposits, and all of that stuff, right? Pay for Me, Pay for Me will be very more than happy to help you with doing that. And if you just need help, advice generally, about studying abroad and the whole process, we're also happy to help. And I know Waka Waka Doctor has a lot of content around, relocation and studying abroad. So, that would also be some great resources. And yeah, super happy to have everybody here, and thank you very much for coming.
Thank you so much. This has been amazing. Thank you very much, Mr. Paul, for putting together this webinar, and as well, Munya, for coming. And I hope that we've been able to discuss and also answer your questions. Again, if you've got questions, I know we couldn't take every question here. You can send an email to ernest@pay4me.app. Okay, ernest@pay4me.app. Ernest, ERNEST, at pay, number 4, me.app. I'll take that again. Ernest, ERNEST, at pay, number 4, me.app. It's been a pleasure hosting this webinar with you guys and chatting and talking about financing your move abroad. So till I see you again in another webinar, this is Waka Waka Doctor, and I'm signing out, guys. Bye.